Terry Tierney is the author of the poetry collections Why Trees Stay Outside and The Poet's Garage, and the novels Lucky Ride and The Bridge on Beer River. Terry's poems and stories recently appeared in January House, The Shore, Poetry Online, Wildscape, Discretionary and Love, the Bellevue Literary Review, and elsewhere. He has a website, terrytierney.com. Please welcome Terry Tierney.
Thank you, Sandra. And I also want to thank Shauna and Monica for hosting us tonight, and of course the Rivertown Poets. Um, and I'm really happy to be reading with Protho today, and I really hope I can get your name better at some point. But thank you very much. And I thought, as a way of introduction, I start out by reading a couple of poems from my first book, which was The Poet's Garage. Uh, I'm going to read the title poem, which is kind of a true story, though I tweaked it a little bit just for poetic license. The Poet's Garage. When the policemen come to arrest me for forgery, I hide out in the garage where I learned how to write. My manual laid out on the bench, words stacked around me like old tires, pools of black grease where lines have spilled, staining the sawdust. I watch the detective study the house, his junky nose running. He anticipates my arrest and waits for my wife to come home from the library. He reads her the charge, how I forged checks in 3 counties. The name is right, but the description fails. The forger stands taller, pounds heavier, a different Smith. My husband looks like a mechanic, she says, and he's much older. I grin, my toothless grin, holding a bucket of greasy words. A blue-suited sergeant refuses to believe her, saying I am both, older and younger, smaller and larger, a mechanic and a smith. Look in the garage, she says, modifiers hanging on nails, the cardboard box of active verbs, files of proper nouns. No signatures remain, the author gone, only the spaces where he worked. They gather the spaces for evidence. I escape with the narrative, some of it leaking on the way until my book breaks down in Pennsylvania. When my wife escapes and brings my tools, I begin to forge a new silence, a new name, a new library. Thank you. One of the advantages of being a poet is you discover that you no longer have bodily limitations. So one of the things I enjoy doing is going back in time and maybe visiting myself when I was very small. This poem is called Smelling the Rain. Water flowed through black bark canyons, elm and planks of weathered pine, our fort in the barnyard. That day my foot slipped, falling down on muddy shards of slate and cow bones. My knee scraped and bleeding, arm twisted like a thin stalk, straining to lift a heavy bloom of dandelion sun. You were there, wrists slung in t-shirt, fingernails caked with mud, wrapping my wounds in grass, your green shoots growing up through holes in my shoes. Now my blue jeans drag, worn cuffs soaked in puddles, but you are still there in your forever spring, waiting so we can climb again, one more time on bending limb. So I'd like to jump ahead to my newer book, Why Trees Stay Outside, which came out from Unsolicited Press about a year and a half ago. This first poem is I like to read this poem because when I had a book launch at the Great Good Place for Books in Montclair in Oakland, and which has sadly been closed recently. But when I read the first line of this poem, we were reading during I was reading during a power outage, and when I read the first line of this poem, the lights miraculously came on. So this poem is called Lint. Once you believed in God, but each year he grew smaller, shrinking like that cotton shirt you never wear, the one with crossed oars, faded canoe, Northwood's Bible camp, where you almost drowned. The last time you saw him, he was curled up in the back row of your sock drawer, hardly larger than the cotton ball you saved from a bottle of vitamin C. By now, he must be reduced to lint. You recall the sermon in the camp clearing, how faith is like lint, modest, unobtrusive, but sticky in a tactile, textile way. Bits of lint cling together, form a mass, like the congregation on your dryer filter, until it might fill a fluffy bear, flannel shirt, stuffing for your wayward soul, a person, a saint. The pastor shows her ball of lint with pride, but it could infer one God or many. Depends on faith, and faith depends on lint. Alone in the deep lake, you try to find him, his tufty beard, grandfather on cresting wave, though heaven must be farther away, beyond reach, like the distant boat trailing a weave of linty rope. Rescue or revelation, sinking boy never asks. This next poem is the title poem for this volume. It's called "Why Trees Stay Outside." Why do trees stay outside? My son asks in the rearview mirror, his car seat centered behind me. He worries about the soaking rain, the trees getting wet. I could tell him the old fable, the night the redwoods came to dinner and grew too tall to leave. Or I could tell him the truth, how trees are inside now. We live in their house, their roots clasped in rings around us like praying hands. They watch, wondering why we neglect the pain of mowed grass, the desperation of doe and fawn sprinting for shelter, the cold stars peering through boughs of live oak, the promise of blooming moss. I might echo his teachers, say we are one with nature. The trees and rocks love us. They want to be left outside. The easy answer he expects. We climb a ridge as the rain clears, sifting soot from the air. Across the bay, the Farallon Islands punch through the fog like knuckles. When we were living in upstate New York, my sister had a number of polydactyl cats. They they have six toes, and I read that Hemingway also had polydactyl cats, and so I figured there must be some connection. This poem is called "It Starts with Hemingway." Hunched over black typewriter, musing light, sun-washed curtains, cigarette targeting keys, another burning in glass ashtray. Sleeveless, fly-sticking sweat, he slams the carriage return, rifle bolt, spitting, empty shells, platen, injecting a new line, polydactyl cat on the windowsill. The same cat perches in my chair, matted fur from trekking north, Key West to Miami by boat, paddling through snaky swamps, canvas vest stuffed with flasks, sultry whiskey and cognac promise, a carton of Camels in his backpack. Typing fast with six toes, no thumb for a spacebar, endless paragraph unrolling toward the asphalt horizon. Word to word, strangers, no more. Kerouac, asleep in the back. My turn to drive. This poem is called Rumor of Love. Tonight, we hide behind pseudonyms, trying to guess our subtext like literature freshmen. Should I prune my hair? Will it grow more shoots? That Christmas, we found a bird's nest in the tree, an omen for our lives in this former pasture. How I wrote the philosophy essay for our son, his only C, the handful of nails I left on the deck, my lost keys, the rusty bucket of rainwater bursting with mosquito larvae, the hint of malice in my runny nose. How you always carry tissue, even when I'm swinging upside down. Never forget the secret cadence of my name. Those first moments of our breathless romance, swept into the slipstream of a 16-wheeler, blowing out these walls so we could dance. Did I ever tell you I lost my keys on purpose? That age does not exist? That our discarded gestures live on like a rumor no one else will ever share? I'd like to read a couple of newer poems. More recent. And you might wonder why a young guy like me is writing poems about aging, but um, but here comes another one. Um, this is called Apology. You ask me why I comb my hair now that it's fallen out, as if the seconds I waste could add up to something. I don't need a reason. I have no apology for the frayed hem of my jeans, the worn hole in my crotch, the years I tried to escape my clothes like a god on a binge, my weak knees and broken arm from pointing the wrong way through traffic. Too late to admit my thoughts were impure. Not all, just the puckered scars in my back from making love to myself when I thought I could avoid the darting rabbit beneath my tires. Oblivion. I no longer remember the sighs when we made love, the tears afterward, cars squealing in the street, scattering pedestrians like insects. Nor do I remember when you told me how lucky we were to be living in a time like this, in a place where sunshine drips from broken faucets, never ending like the hip hop track you can't forget. Nor the time I neglected to turn off the heat, another sin wasted when I could have done much better, saved the last slice of bread for that day we were so hungry I wore my raincoat to the grocery store, filling its threadbare pockets with promises I'd never keep. And I've forgotten the night you told me how shadows weave dark wings, how we can listen to murmurs of stars and recover them all from the relentless furnace of creation. And I'll never recall those times our words failed, evaporating like the steam we breathed. This next poem is called Call Me Before It Melts. An iceberg the size of Manhattan calves beneath the floor of the world, recalling our neighborhood etched in stone. Sushi from the courtyard restaurant, rolled in pages of seaweed, balanced on your chopsticks like tiny muffins you never saved for breakfast. You pointed at the freckled girl licking an ice cream cone, chocolate lava running down her chin, her dress without ruffles, black like a penguin, her eyes aging in place from blue to infrared, our speed accelerating, mimicking a cool breeze. We sat above an ancient forest where we heard the live oak beneath us, steering toward promises of fog, wolves stalking deer and antelope, their thirsty echoes rising through ages of hubris, waiting for our bodies to soak the soil. Remember when we boiled water that night our daughter was born? How she left for college the next day and returned years later with a new face, complained about the late storm, throwing icicles at her alone, the chemical rain that was our fault before she erased us like bleached coral. I would have tried to call you wherever you are if I thought it would come to this, but you know where to find me, clinging to old coordinates. We might have time for one more kiss before our watches fail. Yeah, I'm going to return to Why Trees Stay Outside. You might have gathered that I see religion. I read a lot about uh, the environment and relationships, but and religion and uh, and of course science. But I see religion and science in particular as kind of toy boxes of imagery. And this poem is called "The James Webb Telescope Detects a Heartbeat." They say the pulses come from a distant galaxy, an infant cluster in the first moment of birth. But I wonder if the heartbeat is yours, there in your nebula of blood and gas, mindlessly chewing the corners of your blanket with toothless gums, your eyes still shut to screaming light. The weave of distance and time, where you will always be our first child, the edge of our farthest vision. We squint in every spectrum just to see you the way you are, though we know it's the way you were, what you might have been, larger than we can imagine, and farther than any lost prayer. Your growth beyond our lifespan. What do you see when you look our way? Are we even there, or are we infants like you? I'd like to end with a short poem. This poem is called Again the Supermoon. Nights when the moon is close, tides of blood rush through my body. Draw me toward the shore of clouds as you try to pull me back. I hear the Bowie in my ears, the bells that think they know me, have seen me before, the same cliff, same alarm. I should know its direction, but I am lost, craving the first snow, the humidity colder than frost, the silent time alone. Leave the door open for me. Thank you.